the spacemen sail the cosmic bay. From Jupiter to Saturn we'll deliver on our starship, sailing through the interplanetary strait. With a hardy crew and a cargo of dreams, through the nebula's mist we'll forge our own schemes. In the vastness of space where no man has been, we'll navigate, chart the unexplored galactic highway. Give home maze upon the starry sea. We're the spacemen sailing through infinity. With our voices loud and our spirits free, we'll voyage across the celestial sea. Voyage across the celestial sea. Crimson skies our ship prevails. Across the stars a celestial flight, metal warriors bound by might. Ooh, yeah. In this realm of shadows darkness unfurls, a symphony of chaos, where planets war the nebula.
Coffee, the nectar of the gods. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. My ears are askew, yes. Problem with these inlines things is if they're not 100% in, they you can't hear properly. Oh, but coffee. This soda, Pitsnoy, thank you for the follow. It's very much appreciated. Dark Mirror, Dagger, Anthony, welcome. Hello. How are you all doing? Zorimo, it's good to see you as well. Good morning, Ryan. Hope you're doing well. And that's not good, Dark Mirror. But I have been there as a chronic insomniac. Thankfully, my sleep schedule's a bit better these days. And that's mainly because of medication. I never would have guessed that sleep would affect the voice so much. Or lack of sleep. Good morning, Samantha. Hope you're doing well. Is it my imagination, or are there less active people on the HFY subreddit? I remember a couple of years ago. It was always a minimum of 1,000 to 1,500 people. And I was sort of maxed out at 4,000. Seems to be a bit less these days. I wonder how much of that is from all the AI stuff, just in general. Fair enough, Samantha. I mean, being active does help. Helps you recover, makes you feel better. It could be people running out of ideas, but it's also people reading. That was most of the people who were active on the forum subreddit. Fair enough. But when I used to record at this time of day, there used to be 1,000 to 1,500 on the subreddit. Now there's 500. So something is slightly different. Good morning, Annie. I hope you're doing well.
Sailing through the cosmos, it's my final voyage, leaving Earth behind, seeking stars to my
Must admit, when I saw that name, I thought, Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Which is a Michael Jackson song. Or, slightly more relevant to me is a... No, I told you to reschedule this. Alien Ant Farm song.
setting sails to the sky, bidding farewell to this world, no tears left to cry, with constellations as my compass, I'll navigate to the outer realms where my fate awaits.
Yes, they do have that. It's pretty much the only song of theirs that I really listen to anymore. But I wasn't really into like all of their music, it was just that one. And then a couple others.
I'll serenade the heavens with my cosmic lullaby, a space shanty melody as I say my last goodbye.
Yes, the YouTube algorithm. The constant battle against the machines. Join the Freedom Forces. Hit that like button. Or not. That's fine. All good. It is in the middle of the night. So, I do understand this. But hopefully, eventually, I can do this for long enough to catch people as they go to sleep and as they wake up. But that's not going to be today. Good morning, Phoenix Paul, ×2. Hope you're doing well. Morning, Lord Vulpex. Everything seems to be stabilizing out. Yes. YouTube is not angry with me. Oh, that reminds me. Was I able to be a good boy in the stream yesterday? I was a good boy during the stream yesterday. YouTube didn't limited ad my stream. Very interesting. Even though I did say one naughty word. Good morning, Redvex. I hope you're doing well. I could, but I don't like begging for likes. So if people want to hit the like button, they can. Good night, Ryan Flack. Thank you for popping past. It's the same reason why I don't specifically say hit the like button in my videos. It's like, well, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I don't want to be too needy. Fair enough. I'm glad that I am your alarm clock to realize you should be asleep. Yeah, pink eye is not great. Fair enough, Donald. Thank you for popping past, and hopefully I can provide some entertainment for the last couple hours of your stream, of your workday. I think we can decrease the volume of this a little bit. Fair enough. As long as he's staring deeply into your eyes, that's all you can ask for. So today's going to be another long story. Got a whole bunch of them lined up for the whole week. Thank you for the kind words, Donald. It's very much appreciated. Good morning, Postmatic. I hope you are doing well. Alright, what are we doing? We're moving to streamer mode number 2. Deuce. Do it. Where is that? That is... Just give me a second, I need to teleport away. Nope, that's not good. And I'm back. Good morning, Kevin Schultz. I hope you're doing well. Just got rid of that little thing over there. Yeah, it works. Everything's getting in the way today. Mouse. It's okay. It's okay. Good morning, Forge Master. I hope you're doing well. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's basically an infection in the eye. And the same with the sinuses. They get very worried about infection because once it breaks the barrier to the brain, it's basically game over at that point. But at least in the sinuses, you've got a bone in between. Oh, sorry, turning the screen on. Yeah, there we go. Well, in the sinuses, you've got a bone in between the infection and the brain. But the eye, there's a hole at the back. So it can do a lot of bad stuff. Right. Got my teleprompter working. Yes, I'm a constant professional, forgetting to turn stuff on. Yes, I am at GMT plus 2, which means it is 10 o'clock in the morning for me. Which is, a decent time to start work. Well, it's not when I started work. Start recording, more specifically. Awesome. Looks like runner one is writing again. That's good. I think his son passed away. And then, understandably, he stopped writing. There we go. There is the link to the current story, if you are interested in this. Right. What am I doing? Yes, that's correct. Yes. Okay, moving things around, trying to figure out what I'm doing. Yeah, time zones are very weird. If I were to stream at the optimal time for everybody, it would be the probably not optimal time for me and my voice. Yeah, that is definitely a new meaning to WAP. We are professionals. But I'm worried that if I started using that acronym, I'd get demonetized because I'm not a famous singer. So we'll just spell it out instead of saying the acronym. But yes, Kevin, it's one of the reasons why I did the left hand, why I did the join chat, so everybody could see what everybody was saying. Fair enough, Kevin. It's fair enough. So I've found, because I have to drink so much water, and I need to drink at least 2 liters of water before I start recording, I can't, and it takes 2 hours for it to have an effect on my voice. Even if I wanted to, I can't start recording when I wake up. I need to drink water as soon as I wake up and wait 2 hours. Which is fantastic. The side effect of drinking so much water is having to run to the bathroom quite often. Yes, that glowy thing in the sky is quite menacing. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep hydrated. Whiskey would be better. But it does damage the vocal cords, unfortunately, so there is that. But talking about the big scary bright thing in the sky, when I started the whole, what was it, 18 months ago, starting to try getting my health sorted out, I started having to take vitamin D tablets because I just did not see the sun. I would be in my recording studio, which has no sun, for 16 hours a day, and then I would sleep. So I didn't see the sun for like 3 years, basically. To the point where I had to legitimately take vitamin D supplements. But now I see the sun a little bit more often. Which is a good thing. Yeah, I mean, the vitamin D deficiency can cause a whole bunch of really nasty things. And your standard multivitamin doesn't have it. Well, I don't know. Would be the simple answer, Forge Master. Before the operation, I had constant pain. To varying degrees. But that was because of the vocal cord partial paralysis. So, because of the partial paralysis, my vocal cord on my right side, these muscles here, had to do a lot more work. So I had, after every day, a shooting pain in my throat. So that was like 4 years of shooting pain. But general soreness, stay hydrated, do warm-up exercises. Yeah. So when I started the whole getting my voice into working order, shall we say. Here we go. I had a pain at the bottom of my Adam's apple every day. And I had a pain, stabbing pain in the side of my neck. And that was for 3 years. Then 6 months of recovery got rid of the pain at the bottom of my Adam's apple, and hopefully the surgery will get rid of the pain in the side of my neck. But so far it has. I haven't had that stabbing pain yet. But also I haven't really pushed it. Dry air is not too bad. I mean, it's pretty dry where I am. Dry and pollution. Yeah. I mean, if your job stops you from being able to see the sun, you do need to at least keep it up. But I think it's something ridiculous. Like, you only need half an hour of, like, full sun to get your daily dose of vitamin D. Something like that. But sometimes you don't even get time to do that. M1. Yes, that is very true. If you don't take the vitamins, they don't work. At all. And something is definitely better than nothing. I know it's a big problem in the very, very north, like Alaska and parts of Canada, where you've got like months of no sun. That's how they discovered the vitamin D thing. M1 is... okay, I didn't explain it today. My bad. I shall explain. So I've got 23 voices. 19 male, 3 female, and 1 child. So the M stands for male, and the number stands for which voice it is. M1 is my narration voice. It is the standard voice. And then every subsequent number is a different voice. There should be a list of voices in the description of the stream. Let me just make sure I'm not talking completely out of my rear end. Okay, so if you go look in the description, there's all the male voices that I have. And if you want me to talk in that, to do a super chat for you in a specific voice, you do a super chat with a code, and I'll use that voice to do the super chat. I didn't include the female voices because they put a lot more strain on my voice. I would imagine it happens to any place that's past that, what do you call it? North enough. That you wouldn't have days without sun. I come from South Africa, which is, on average, one of the most sunny countries in the world. And I think the other ones are also fairly similar to us in the degrees. What was it? Lateral lines. Whatever they're called. The name escapes me now. Yes. It is a pseudo-American accent. So all my accents are pseudo because they're not convincing. But they're enough of an accent that you know what they're talking about. So the burger accent would be something like this. A little bit more American. You can't blame me. Yesterday, I put these up for chat to decide what they were called, and that's what chat decided to call it. On my personal notes, that one is called American Low Central. Which, the Low Central has nothing to do with geography. It is where I talk in my voice. So, again, that was not a voice that I'm trying to specifically imitate, but people think it sounds like that. Latitude, yes. Yes, latitude. That's the correct word. Not a problem, Kevin. I think it changed. More people wanted it as the burger language, pseudo burger. Unless did I change it to freedom? Can't remember. I still have my notes as specific. Good morning, Crusader. I hope you're doing well. Okay. We got a Snively Pompous English, M3. M3. Which is kind of like a... they seem to be more intelligent than we expected. Something like that. 1. And 1. And 1. Ba-dum-ba-dum. This is the Snively voice.
General Jatuk,
Replied the lieutenant.
it appears that there are now virtually no humans anywhere near any of the capital ships.
Something like that. M3. M3. Dog barking. That's extra bonus content for you. M4. M4. M3. M4. More dog box. More extra content. M4. M3. M4. You know, I find it funny that some stories like this one, it's a half-an-hour story. It looks like it's going to only have 3 voices in it. And then you can have a 5-minute story with 20 voices in it. Yeah, well, I don't really take pictures of my pets. I don't really take lots of pictures of anything. I'm not really a social media person. True social media rather than YouTube. So I don't take selfies and random pics. Unless they're doing something very specific. M3. M3. M4. M1. Oh, M4. M3. Third in command. Ooh. Where are we going to go with? M8. Which is cowardly.
General, I heard you too. I'm seeing something strange on my global scanners.
Something like that. M3. And if you are wondering, I do normally give the aliens more annoying voices than the humans. Sounds very much like a cat in all its glory. M7. Oh, 8. Not 78. Still not there yet. Excuse me. M4, 3. I have no idea who this is, so we'll go with M4. M3. M3. M4. M1. M3. M1. M3. M3. Good morning, Captain No Name. Hope you're doing well. Oh, science team. M7. That is villainous with a T. M3. That's quite interesting, Red Vex. I don't think you get paid here. Yeah, I'd imagine it's just a mitigate risk. Which is fair enough, I suppose. Having people die when they give you blood is probably not the best. Tippity tap, tippity tap. Missing inverted commas. 15. No. Because Bond is Scottish, not Irish. So Bond would be M6. Well, Bondish. Yeah, that was ish, not bondage, as in age. So, leave me alone, algorithm. It's a perfectly acceptable word. That is very, very interesting, Red Vex. I am almost certain that that doesn't happen in South Africa. M7, M3, M7, M3, M7, M7, M3, M1, M7, M1, M7, M7, as far as I know, in South Africa, you can't exclude somebody from doing a blood donation, even if they have something like HIV. I could be mistaken about that, but I'm pretty sure that law went through. You don't even have to tell the people drawing your blood that you have HIV. M4, 3, 3, M7, M1, M4, 3, 2, 1, lift off. Fair enough, Crusader. But I'm pretty sure at some point they did change that. Maybe they changed it back. There's a lot of pushback against it. Good morning, Nigel Smith. I hope you're doing well. But I mean, this would have been 20 years ago. I'm talking about. Maybe 18 years ago, something like that. That's not M1. That is M3. Yeah, that sounds about right. I do know, like in my late teens, early 20s, I couldn't give blood because of the tattoos. And then they changed all of that. Fair enough. I mean, if you're donating plasma, it's a very specific use case. I have personally never given blood, but that was because for 10 years I wasn't eligible to give blood, so I just still don't. But that's because for 10 years I was tattoos and stuff. Even piercings at one point. If you had a new piercing, that wouldn't take your blood because of potential infection. Yeah, I think it prevents a lot of people, Phoenix. Well, I mean, blood pressure would make sense. If your blood pressure is too low, you could have a stroke or heart attack. And if it's too high, that means that there is an underlying problem. No. If it's high, you're at risk of a stroke. If it's low, you're at risk of something else. But, you know, I was absent from trade school the day they taught this stuff. All right. We're almost ready. Good morning, Peanut. I hope you're doing well. For for those that are new here, I'm going to go into recording mode, yes. That means, basically, I'm going to ignore chat for the next indeterminate amount of time. We're also going to have this green screen of doom. No, that way. Here we go. Green screen of doom. Because the video editing software can remove the green screen better than OBS. So we're going to be recording a video. So if you don't want spoilers, you might want to step out for a little while. Still got this spot here. No. Okay. Yes. Alrighty. I think we're all ready. Glasses off. Teleprompter open. Recording video. Recording audio. Burping. Blinking. Yes. Yeah, it also depends on the length of the story. This story's base length is half an hour. So it'll probably take me 40 minutes to 45 minutes to narrate this. Somewhere around there. Lots of fun and games. And then we might even do another one after this. We'll just have to see how the voices are going. Anyways. Greetings, ladies and melodians, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called They Are Barely Better Than Cavemen, written by Runner 1. The briefing of the Kalurian High Council had been succinct. A new inhabitant world had been discovered in a previously unexplored arm of the galaxy. A long-forgotten scout probe had followed an unexplained EM signal and found a nickel-iron world in the habitation zone of a moderately sized yellow-white star. The newly scanned world showed a planet with atmosphere conducive to carbon-based life, with easily accessible resources, and a mass that would be perfect outpost and colony world for the Kalurian people. A follow-up manned probe had found that the EM signal was due to the activity of the world's indigenous people. Humans, they called themselves, as serendipitous observation had revealed. The human population of the world was in excess of 8 billion, an obviously astonishingly high population when considering the physical size of the world. It was clear that the humans were reproducing at an alarmingly high and unsustainable rate, far in excess of what any intelligent planet-bound society could tolerate. This was the primary argument that the colonization committee had used. This was the primary argument the colonization committee had used to get the humans declared as a Class 4 species. Though the Kalurian hegemony was composed of many different species from different worlds, position in the Kalurian society was completely determined and controlled by the species class. Position in Kalurian society was completely determined and controlled by your species class. Kalurian species class ranged from 1 to 6. A Class 6 species was lower life with little to no sapience, what many humans might consider animals. A Class 6 species was considered to be no interest and a little more than a nuisance or a source of protein. A Class 5 species was any sapient species that had not yet reached industrialization. Class 5 species were generally used for general labor and menial tasks, workers, servants, medical experiments, etc. A Class 4 species was any life form that had progressed to general use of machines and labor-saving devices. Class 4 species generally had not conquered space travel and more advanced technologies. Class 4 species were also used for labor, but were generally placed in more advanced positions of responsibility, but were absolutely considered to be unworthy of inclusion in general Kalurian society. Species of classes 1 through 3 were the only species considered worthy of inclusion in the Kalurian society. Class 1 was the ruling class, you must be a Class 1 species to ever have any possibility of being included in the Calurian policy-making or political decisions. Classes 2 and 3 were members of general Calurian society. Everything from laborers, technical, medical, and scientific positions were reserved for Class 2 and 3. Species of Class 4 through 6 had no rights under Calurian law and were seen only as property. Several Calurian council members had argued that the newly discovered humans were clearly at least a Class 3 species and thus must be protected as future members of the Calurian hegemony. But they had been overruled by the council members who argued that any reasonably intelligent species would never behave in such a self-destructive fashion. The proponents of Class 4 classification had pointed out that rudimentary space travel and even higher level technology did not automatically classify species as Class 3. It was clear that the humans' propensity for war and self-destruction clearly demonstrated that humanity was not ready for inclusion in Calurian society. At the end of the High Council meeting, it was decided that the humans were a Class 4 species, and as such were clearly the property of the newly expanded Calurian hegemony. Seeing that the inhabitable worlds were few and far between, it was soon determined that the planet known as Earth would be officially claimed as a colony world for the Calurian people. An annexation mission was quickly planned. A fleet of Calurian processing ships were dispatched to the human planet. The mission was simple. The humans' population would be reduced to a more sustainable and controllable level. An initial Calurian outpost would be established, and the remaining human animals would be retrained to serve the Calurian people. When they arrived. The projected population reduction was based on several factors, primarily planet and resource size, as well as making the numbers of humans more reasonable by management of the Calurian overseers. All of this was determined completely unemotionally and scientifically using formulas determined eons ago by the first Calurian hegemony. The final numbers determined by Calurian computers was just over 100 million. This would necessitate the extermination just under 8 billion humans. General Jatuk was selected as leader of the processing fleet. General Jatuk was a member of the Jowly people, a Class 1 society integrated into Calurian hegemony nearly 3 millennia earlier. This was his third annex mission. This was his third annexation mission. General Jatuk sat in his quarters reviewing the mission briefing. The humans had been classified as Class 4. The mission required him to exterminate the majority of the humans, grossly overpopulating the planet known as Earth. Then he was instructed to establish a Calurian outpost and processing facility to prepare the planet for colonization. The remaining humans would be retrained in a processing facility to prepare them as laborers for the soon-to-be-arriving Calurian colonists. As he reviewed his orders, he noted that the numbers of humans populating the planet was unbelievably high. Never in his life had he witnessed a planet so incredibly overpopulated. On his last annexation meeting, the Targa planet hosted a population of just over 800 million. That population had been reduced to just under 80 million, a completely reasonable number for the incoming Calurian colonists to manage. But this planet, Earth, hosted a population of over 8 billion. At first, he thought the number was a misprint. Surely no planet the size of this one could support so many life forms. The most populous planet in the Calurian hegemony was Cestus 3, and it hosted over 1 billion Calurian citizens, and it was nearly 20% larger than this Earth. As he sat reading the reports, he realized why this mission was so large. When he'd been picked to lead this mission, he had been caught off guard by the size of the fleet that he'd been chosen to lead. 15 capital ships, each more than 10 kilometers in size, hosting nearly 1,000 crew and more than 1 million extermination professionals. Never in his life had he seen such a large annexation expedition. In fact, he didn't even realize that the Calurian hegemony had 15 million extermination professionals. Perhaps many had been quickly trained for just this mission. Even with 15 million extermination professionals working, it could take months to reduce Earth's population to manageable levels. Even with 15 million extermination professionals working, it could take months to reduce the Earth's population to manageable levels. Reviewing the intelligence of the new world, he formulated a plan of action. The planet Earth had several large land masses separated by water. General Jatuk decided that he would place his fleet in high orbit and then send down 3 scout ships, followed by 3 more capital ships, to begin the eradication of the humans. Once these ships and their crews had completed their initial operations and secured a foothold, the remaining capital ships would land and continue the process. Intelligence had determined that the humans did have rudimentary spaceflight and aerial capability, but the humans relied on reaction engines for power. Rockets, General Jatuk snickered under his breath. Rockets would be as effective against our technology as throwing pebbles at a charging beast. Soon General Jatuk moved his fleet into orbit of the blue-green planet known as Earth. This was no doubt that his fleet of 15 10-kilometer ships was clearly visible from the planet's surface. As he prepared for the initial incursion on the planet, he wondered what the humans were thinking. It was common for lesser advanced societies to view Calorians as gods. Oftentimes, lower species would attempt to prey and offer sacrifices to the Calurian colonists, believing them to be gods who had somehow been angered by their actions or inactions. It didn't matter. He had a job to do. This planet would be pacified and its remaining people processed to serve the Calurian hegemony. However, instead of prayers and offerings, General Jatuk was surprised when he was notified that an incredibly powerful EM signal was being transmitted directly to the Calurian fleet. The ship's computer had determined that the signal was the equivalent of a "Hello, welcome to Earth" message. Not really the first contact he had expected, but perhaps fortuitous.
Perhaps this mission will go smoothly, he thought to himself. They seem to be more intelligent than we expected. I will inform them of the great blessing of being annexed into Calurian hegemony, and once I explain to them the necessity of reducing the population to sustainable and manageable levels, I'm sure they will understand.
General Jatuk could not have been more wrong. His initial conference had been with the Secretary General of something called the United Nations. The Secretary General had been flanked on both sides by several people of which General Jatuk came to understand were leaders of the most powerful nation-states on the planet. Instead of the reasonable response that General Jatuk expected, he was surprised by the reactions. When he had explained the situation to them, the whole meeting had devolved into a shouting match, which the humans declared war on General Jatuk and his fleet. No matter how much he tried to reason with the humans, he was rebuffed with vitriol and hatred. He patiently tried to explain how advanced the technology of the Calurians was. He tried his best to make it clear that the humans had absolutely no ability to stand against the Calurian hegemony. One of the humans, Jatuk thought he said he was American, had told him to go do something that was physically impossible to do to himself. Finally, out of exasperation, Jatuk had ended the vid conference and began to move forward with his orders. Returning to his original plan, General Jatuk dispatched the initial 3 scout ships towards the planet's surface. As expected, they were met with the primitive aerial vehicles of the humans. Also, as expected, the descending scout ships made short work of the attacking human craft. Using their directed energy weapons and gravity manipulation equipment, the scout ships deftly wiped the attacking craft from the sky as easily as one might smack a bug from the air. By the time the scout ships had completed their part of the mission, more than 100 human craft had been swatted from the air with no more effort than it would take to remove an annoying hair from in front of your eyes. The initial scout ship campaign had proceeded without incident, and General Dutuk gave the order for the 3 capital ships to begin their part of the mission. As before, the capital ships were attacked by human ships, but this time the human ships were ignored with little more effort than one would expend walking through the cloud of gnats. But this time the human ships were ignored with little more effort than one would expend walking through a cloud of gnats. Hundreds of human ships fell from the sky as the colossal capital ships descended to the planet's surface. Once there, the ships began disgorging their extermination professionals. On the ground, they were met with what appeared to be human armies. Unbelievably, in the short time since their arrival, the humans had seemed to amass armies numbering in the millions. No matter, thought General Dutuk, as he watched the events unfolding on his view screens. Just saves us the time of hunting them down. As he watched thousands of human troops vanish in puffs of vapor as the Kalurian incinerated them to gas. The human slug-throwing weapons, on the other hand, were as useless as a child's toys against the Kalurian armor. Oh, from time to time a human would get lucky, and a Kalurian would fall, mortally wounded. But for every Kalurian that fell, more than 1,000 humans fell. Well, casualties are expected on a mission like this, Dutuk thought to himself, as he watched the fracas unfolding on his screen. Suddenly, the humans seemed to stop fighting. It was as though a single command had been heard by every human at the same moment. In a single motion, the humans stopped fighting, turned, and moved quickly away from the Kalurian landing site. The retreat of the humans was so sudden, so fast, and so well coordinated that it left many of the Kalurian exterminators standing scratching their heads. In a matter of minutes, not a single living human could be seen in any direction. In moments, General Dutuk's view went from a cacophony of battle to dead silence, as Kalurian exterminators tried to ascertain where all the humans had gone. Turning to his first lieutenant, Dutuk requested a scan of the area. General Dutuk, replied his lieutenant, it appears that there are now virtually no humans anywhere near the capital ships. What? Exclaimed Dutuk. Where did they go? Well, replied the lieutenant, on reviewing the scanners, it appears the majority of the humans were moving away from the landing sites the whole time. The ones resisting have now begun to board high-speed transports and are quickly leaving the area. I don't understand, replied General Dutuk. Eyeing his console, the lieutenant continued to speak. It appears, the lieutenant paused for a long moment as he assessed the situation, that the humans that were resisting the Kalurian exterminators were simply a delaying tactic, by buying time, so to speak, for the other humans to escape the area. Escape? To where and why? Don't they understand that they can't hide from our senses? They are just delaying the inevitable. Of course, General, continued the lieutenant, but our scans confirm that there are very few humans within 25 kilometers of the perimeter of any of our capital ships, and the distance seems to be widening. Very well. Order the extermination squad leaders to form backup. We will regroup into standard eradication phalanxes. The general looked down at the timeline on his personal data device. I was hoping that their resistance would actually speed things up. Leaning back and exhaling as he continued, I guess that we will just stick to my original timeline estimate. A few moments passed while General Dutuk watched the view screens as his extermination professionals arranged into squads. Various Hydration. A few moments passed while General Took watched the view screens as his extermination professionals arranged into squads. Various ground and air vehicles were being unloaded from the capital ships. He watched the work with pride, thinking about the coming day when he could walk back into the Calorian High Council chambers and hand another pacified world ready for colonization over to the hegemony. I guess they will give me another medal, he thought. Just then, his thoughts were interrupted by his third in command.
General Chatu, I'm seeing something strange on my global scanners.
Turning towards the station over his left shoulder. What is it, Lieutenant? He said to General.
I just registered several missile launches from a remote area in one of the western continents.
No, they're trying to attack us with their primitive chemical rockets. The general smirked as he watched the readout.
According to my readings, the missiles appear to be ballistic projectiles. The first one appears to be headed for the Dominator. As you remember, you assigned the Dominator to the eastern region of the Western Hemisphere for eradication.
That missile should reach its destination in about 8 minutes of their time. The other two projectiles seemed to be on the polar arc, headed for the other two capital ships on the primary continent of the Western Hemisphere. Oh, all right.
That missile should reach its destination in about 8 minutes of their time. The other two projectiles seem to be on polar arc. The other two projectiles seem to be on a polar arc, headed for the other two capital ships on the primary continent of their Western Hemisphere. They'll take a few minutes longer.
So I did. General Jatuk rubbed his chin as he looked at the numbers on his screen. At that speed they might do some minor damage, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. But I don't think it's anything to worry too much about. Notify Captain Lamata of the Dominator, as well as the other captains, about the incoming projectiles. They might want to hit them with the heat beam to soften them up before impact. I doubt that we'll see more than a smattering of hot metal on the hulls of our ships.
Yes, sir,
replied the lieutenant. General Jatuk turned back to his view screens to watch the preparations. Of course, he was watching the Dominator. It was the pride of the Calorian fleet. A few minutes passed as the troops continued to mobilize. No, not the troops, he quickly corrected himself. The Calorians were so far beyond these humans, referring to the extermination professionals as troops as an insult to the Calorian military. Suddenly, a beam of light could be seen emanating from the turret on the top of the Dominator. The captain thought to himself. The general thought to himself. Captain Lamata was hitting the incoming. The general thought to himself. Captain Lamata was hitting the incoming projectiles with a heat ray. That should soften them. That should soften the falling object up, to turn it to liquid, though. There are inverted commas missing, which is why it's a bit weird at the moment. That should soften the falling objects up and turn it to liquid, thought the general. It would be little more than warm rain in the hull of the massive Dominator. Suddenly, there was the ever so brief flash of white light, and all his view screens went dark at the same moment. What happened? Exclaimed the general as he turned back towards the lieutenants at the stations behind him. A few moments of silence followed as every officer on the bridge scanned their readouts in confusion.
I don't know, sir,
Finally answered the second in command.
All contact with the Dominator has been lost. Lost? What do you mean, lost? General replied the General. I don't know, sir. One moment everything was completely normal, and the next it was nothing. The lieutenant continued operating various controls in this desperate attempt to understand the readouts he was seeing. Long moments passed while the bridge around him was in chaos of disorientation and confusion. Give me a moment to acquire. Give me a moment to acquire an orbital view. Suddenly the colour drained from the face of his third officer. Suddenly, the colour drained from the face of the third officer. It's gone! His lips shook and his fingers trembled as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Gone? Growled the General. What do you mean, gone? The Dominator, sir. The Dominator, sir, added the Lieutenant, his voice breaking as he tried to form words. The Dominator is gone. Oh, this is the same dude. The Dominator, sir, he added. The Dominator, sir, added the Lieutenant, his voice breaking as he tried to form the words. The Dominator is gone, sir. Gone! Exclaimed the General as he jumped to his feet and rushed to the Lieutenant's side. The display showed an orbital view of the eastern part of the largest continent in the western hemisphere of the planet called Earth, where, just shortly before, could be seen a hulking mass of the 10-kilometer diameter Dominator. Tongue twister. Where just shortly before could be seen the hulking mass of the 10-kilometer diameter Dominator was nothing but a flaming wasteland as far as the eye could see. Above this hellish landscape, a 30-kilometer mushroom cloud was quickly billowing high into the stratosphere. What happened? What have I seen? Shrieked the General, his eyes raising an octave, his voice raising an octave with each breath. General, came a voice from the science station. According to these readings, General, came the voice from the science officer. According to these readings, the General turned towards the ensign working at the science station. The Dominator was destroyed by a nuclear attack. The General turned back towards the view screens, displaying the other two capital ships on the surface of the planet. Nuclear weapons? Nuclear weapons, he exclaimed. How could a Class 4 society field nuclear weapons? Get word to the captains. Warn them. As the General was speaking, there were two bright flashes of light, and the remaining two capital ships disappeared from view. The General slunk down into his chair. More than 3 million Calorian dead in the blink of an eye. How is this even possible? How was this even possible? Nuclear weapons had been outlawed across the galaxy eons ago. No race was even allowed to study them. Nuclear weapon technology was the most carefully protected and secured knowledge in the galaxy. Yet, somehow, these humans barely above cavemen had not only constructed nuclear weapons, but somehow had managed to enhance them far beyond anyone's wildest imagination. How was it even possible to build even a nuclear weapon powerful enough to destroy not one, but 3 of the largest vessels in the Calorian fleet? Not only that, but why had the heat rays used by each of the now dead captains seemed to have no effect at all on the approaching devices? General Jituk, the voice of his science officer interrupted his thoughts. Yes, I have analyzed the destruction of those other 2 capital ships. And? The weapon used were not normal nuclear devices. No single nuclear weapon has the destructive potential. No single nuclear weapon has the destructive potential we just witnessed. I know that, sneered the despondent General. So tell me, what was it that the humans used? According to my data, sir, the humans utilized multiple fusion warheads. Fusion devices?
The general looked incredulous. How, in the name of the gods, could a primitive race like the humans even conceive of triggering a single fusion release, much less such detonations at the exact same moment? I was closely monitoring the projectiles as they descended towards the other two eradication ships. Continue. As near as I can deduce, the fusion devices that destroyed our ships were triggered by a fission device.
By the gods, you must be mistaken.
No, sir, continued the ensign. It appears that the humans have designed fusion devices that are triggered by the detonation of a fission device.
But why did the heat rays have no effect on the incoming devices? I could clearly see that Captain Lamata fired on the incoming projectiles with the Dominator's heat ray, as did the other two captains.
The ensign swallowed a lump in his throat. I reviewed the playback of the human attack. Although only 3 chemical-powered missiles were launched, each one seemed to carry at least 4, and maybe as many as 8 thermonuclear devices. The ensign turned the view screen so that the general could see what he was describing. Here at Apogee, the ensign pointed at the top several curved dotted lines. Each launch vehicle seemed to expel its payload of devices. Each device seemed to have simply descended towards their targets ballistically and completely independently, since the devices were suborbital devices traveling at hypersonic velocities. It is reasonable to assume that each device carried a significant amount of ablative heat shielding. Considering the speed at which they were traveling, they would have been exposed to the heat rays for only moments.
And with multiple incoming devices with ablative shielding, the general added, there would not have been enough time for the heat rays to have any effect.
No, sir.
The ensign's analysis was concise and detailed, especially considering how quickly he had compiled the data. The general decided in that moment to recommend him for a commendation as soon as they returned to the Chlorian home world. But now what? Thought the general. The fact that these humans possessed fusion devices with an admittedly primitive but effective delivery system changed the mission parameters significantly. A ground-based extermination process now seemed completely impractical. I better contact the council for further instructions.
General Chituk,
as the general was mulling over his options, his second-in-command's voice interrupted his thoughts. Yes, Lieutenant?
I was reviewing the data from earlier.
And?
A short time ago, our scan has detected several more launches from various locations all over the planet.
Why wasn't I notified?
In the confusion of the destruction of our 3 ships on the planet's surface, we simply overlooked them.
Spinning in place, the general screamed, Find them! Find them now! I want to know where those rockets are heading. In moments, the ensign spoke up. Sir, I have them, sir. In moments, the ensign spoke up. I have them, sir. Sir, there was a long pause. The missiles are already dispersed their payloads. Where are they headed? Screamed the general. The ensign's face went white as the blood drained from it. He couldn't speak. He simply raised his trembling hand and pointed towards the main viewport at the front of the bridge. General Chituk turned towards the often ignored window at the front of the ship. His brain did not even have time to register what his eyes were showing him. There, just meters away, was a cloud of what cone-shaped objects traveling straight towards his... face at hypersonic velocities. Had it not been for the fact that the only thing in normal space that traveled faster than these dozen or so cone-shaped harbingers of death was light itself, his retinas would have never even sensed the photons they fell. That fell on them. As it was, before the signals could even travel along the short bundle of nerves from his eyes to his brain, the fuses triggered. Milliseconds later, spherical high-explosive charges leaped. Milliseconds later, spherical high-explosive charges leapt to life, compressing the plutonium at their hearts, more than doubling its density in nanoseconds. A split nanosecond later, untold trillions of plutonium atoms began to split as the freed neutrons cascaded through the excitable element. X-rays intense enough to melt a building-sized mass of lead poured forth from the primal forces being used. X-rays intense enough to melt a building-sized mass of lead poured forth from the primal forces being unleashed by a tennis ball size of massive metal. These rays, more powerful than those released by a star, impacted a secretive material known as fog bank, quicker than light could traverse the width of a human hair. This material became plasma, hotter than the surface of the sun. Sitting at the core of this conflagration was another small sphere of plutonium surrounded by caustic material. The raging forces of creation compressed the caustic lithium deuteride inwards towards the golf ball-sized sphere of silvery metal. Only nanoseconds had passed since the fuses triggered, as the signals rushed along the nerves from the General Jutuk's. Only nanoseconds had passed since the fuses triggered, as the signals rushed along the nerves from General Jutuk's eyes towards his brain. His body evaporated in a hellish inferno, hotter than the core of a star. His brain even registered the flash of light from the detonation. His brain never even registered the flash of light. His brain never even registered the flash of light from the detonation. All these apocalyptic energies unleashed by the primitives, barely better than cavemen on the planet that spun slowly below. Across the surface of Earth, millions of people turned their eyes skyward. For long moments, the planet had 12 new suns hanging in the sky. But slowly, the primal forces unleashed by humanity waned. The fireballs slowly disappeared, leaving only twinkling embers in their place. As the darkness returned and the stars once again shone forth, mankind breathed a collective sigh of relief. Nightmarish weapons that for decades were feared to be the end of humanity had become its salvation. End of story. Alrighty. Yeah, so it was written a bit weird. Give me a second. Just dying of heat here. Okay, yeah, so there was semicolon, inverted commas missing all over the place, which changes the flow of the story, so that's why it was a bit weird. Hello to everybody who popped in while I was reading. How are you? I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Good morning, Andrew. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, Wolfos. Thank you for the kind words, Felina. Zanti, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Thomas, same to you. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Fair enough, Peanut. I think my big gripe really only is somehow noting who's talking. Because a lot of times, and when they're talking, that's what trips me up, is the who's talking and when they're talking. Good morning, Brian. I hope you're doing well. Oh, that's unfortunate, Brian. Really is. Sniper Merc, good morning. All right. Right. Editing. Editing. Cool. So the only editing that I do on these videos is normalizing the audio. Yeah, that's you know, the most good thing. That's the best thing. If there's injuries but no deaths. Yes, definitely. No, nothing says get off my lawn like a thermonuclear bomb. I think that is a very big get off my lawn sign. Okay. So, for those of you new, I normalize the audio. And that means that the peaks and the lows are more equalized. That's why the volume stays more consistent through the story. So, I also do voice removal. Thank you, Sniper Merc. It's getting there. It's definitely... I've got full range, again, for the first time in who knows how long. Now it's just a matter of getting my stamina back. So we've removed the ambient noise. We're going to amplify it. Then we're going to hard remove the noise floor. Then normalizing it, basically. And then adjust the volume. And that is the only processing I do on my voice. Story name. Catherine, thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying the content. It's very much appreciated. Yeah. Basically, Velina. It is definitely not good to unite humanity in any way. Well, if you want to conquer them, that is. Fair enough. It is definitely an extreme way of mowing your lawn, but it is working. Okay. I think we should try to another story. So we're gonna write her. Next story is also going to be quite long. It's probably going to be half an hour as well. But it's good. Pushes the voice. The only exercise I do is vocal exercises. Ba-dum-tsh. Righty. Glamour. There we go. Banning somebody on Twitch. Alrighty. Thank you, Thomas. It's my pleasure. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is get in between humans fighting, because then they'll still fight, just not each other. Alright, so this is a long story. I think it follows the same beat as the previous one, which is coincidence. It is pure coincidence. Yeah, very much. Do I lift?
Yes, I do.
There you go. That's how you do that. Do you even lift, bro?
Yes.
So if you ever watch my videos and think that I'm like, you know, there's several sad stories in a row or several similar stories in a row and I planned that, no, I didn't. It's just a coincidence. My favorite color, green, I think. Black. When it comes to clothing, I'd say black, because then, you know, it doesn't show, doesn't get dirty as easily, or doesn't show dirt as easily. But like general color, I don't know, green or purple, I suppose. Nuclear white. Fair enough. Fair enough. It depends on the onion ninjas. Yes, I've never been quick. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Back in the old days, with the touchpad, the actual keys, I could type a message fast. These days, not so much. Fat hands, small phone. Yes, Thomas Sig. The stuff on Spotify is just condensed stuff from the channels. So if I haven't been doing stuff on the channels, there won't be stuff on Spotify. I don't know. Spamming dodgy websites. Well, it is appreciated that the interaction. It's amazing how. Oh, I suppose that would be tempting fate. Ignore I said anything. Oh, that's awesome. Red Vex. A lullaby. That's awesome. I'm glad you're having fun with that. Definitely an interesting program. Website. whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm sure there will be at some point. Or maybe there is already. I don't know. I know at some point somebody asked me, they were in college doing, I'd imagine, game development or something. And he asked if I'd be interested in doing the voices in his game. Never heard more about it, but it is a thing. Yeah, but I mean, that's the same with any AI. When it works, it works, and when it doesn't, that's when things get interesting. I watched the video that you sent me. It left me more confused than when I started, but basically a harem isekai comedy. It's what I got from the video. Oh, I'm glad you're having fun, Donald. The unspoken trials and tribulations of a nice big bushy moustache as it attacks your nose constantly. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, funny you should mention that, Red Vex. I'm a Spider, So What is the primary inspiration behind Chrysalis, the Royal Road Chrysalis. It's one of the primary inspirations for it. Fair enough. I have to keep mine tamed enough that it doesn't assault the camera. That doesn't mean it's not going to assault the nose. Good morning, James. Hope you're doing well. Center, ho, ho, ho. Okay. Ho, ho, ho! There you go. Yes, I had to move the microphone away from my... So, talking about Santa Claus, I was going to say Spider-Man for some reason. Santa Claus, it reminds me of something. I was talking to an author once, and I was like, can I do your story? And they're like, yeah, sure. But these are the voices you need to use. This character has this voice, and then this character has a fat voice. And I was like, I am only aware of one fat voice in existence, which is, Santa Claus. Other than that, what the hell is a fat voice? I thought that was quite funny. I mean, you didn't give me any characteristic that I can go with, like a deep voice or a high voice. Well, I mean, most people with a fat voice don't sound like they have a fat voice. They just have a voice. The only reason why Santa Claus sounds like a fat voice is because everybody associates it with a big fat jolly man. I don't know, Brian. I always mean to, and then I always forget. I mean, Halloween is very much not a thing here, really. So I forget that. And then Christmas is kind of like, meh. It depends on if there's Christmas stories available at that time, and if they're decent. But I almost always forget. M2. We come in peace or war, your choice. Choose carefully. Something like that. Good morning, Grim. I hope you are doing well. It looks like this is a single narrative story. Yippee!
Oh my god. Oh.
I remember the first Santa Claus. I don't remember any of the others. So, don't know whether you... I've got some holiday movies I always watch on the holidays, specifically Christmas. And, you know, I'm one of those people who like, the best Christmas movie, in my opinion, is Die Hard, something like that. But thankfully, 2 years ago, I think, there was a new movie, which is basically Die Hard, but instead of McClane, it is Santa Claus. And he's getting medieval on the evildoer's ass. And it even goes into a bit of backstory about his Norse beginnings. It was pretty cool. What the hell was it called? Violent Night. That's what it was called. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Okay, so that is basically a single narrative story. No voice. Well, two technically, but I hardly consider 4 words. Very much. What are we doing? Nope. Proceed. Nope. Go back. Yes, definitely voice masculine mode 1 initiated. But first, we'll just hydrate. All right. Just making sure all the stuff is stuffing. Fair enough. Tim Allen sets a high bar for a funny Santa Claus. But Violent Night sets a high bar for an action Santa Claus. It is, I'm pretty sure, R-rated as well. So it is very, very violent. I can't even picture that in my head. Peanut. All right. Going into recording mode. I will see you in half an hour to 45 minutes. Probably closer to 45 minutes. Excuse me. Special Ed, good morning. I hope you're doing well. I'm about to head into recording mode, so I won't be responding to chat. But I'll be back, chat. I'll be back. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. Enjoy the nice beats of the random music that's playing. And I will be back. No, I'm still on Ed. It's just I don't respond to chat when I'm recording for a video. Well, I don't respond much to chat when I'm recording for a video. Okay. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Humans Are Insects, written by Catfish21SM. This thought once prevailed throughout the mine. Humans are insects. This thought once prevailed throughout the mightiest species to ever step foot in the galactic stage. They were right, in a way. The crow Chavik just found a new world, vibrant and brimming with life. Most other species would have turned it into a protected zone and tried to study the natives there to learn more about them. Most Crocavik, however, were not in their mindset. They were far more technologically advanced than the humans could ever dream of being. When they saw the Earth, they did not see a living, breathing death world populated with dangerous predators. No, they saw a resource-rich planet populated by technologically inept insects. Insects that could be easily crushed. Growing up on a death world meant nothing if the other party was so far more advanced than you that you could not even comprehend their technology. That's what most species in the galaxy would have thought. They all would have shared the same mindset. The humans awoke one morning. Well, some of them did. Some awoke in the middle of the night to sirens blaring out in the streets. Others had their workdays interrupted by newscasts and warnings. The young children were dismissed from schools and sent home to their parents, they all witnessed the same massive tower of the size of one of their largest cities landing on their planet in the middle of their ocean. What the Crocavic were after was not the water, nor was it the fish or fossil fuels. They had no need for those things. It was what sat in the center of the planet, a molten iron core. The iron in its molten state would be easily malleable and easy to extract. The massive tower-like structure served as an extractor, refinery, and factory all in one. It drilled down and began to extract the iron core. At first, the humans were completely boggled by this massive drill. They thought that it was a race who had come in peace. They attempted communications, but that didn't last very long. They were completely ignored, and when they noticed what was coming out of the massive factory, they understood what was going on. The tower was not a spaceship. It was a mining station. It was stealing their iron core and transporting the metal to space to build new spaceships. It was stealing their iron core and transporting the metal to space to build new ships and all other supplies. The humans quickly switched to offensive mode. It did nothing. The Crocavic's tower was protected by gravity manipulation devices. These weren't actually meant for defensive purposes. Their true purpose was just to keep the device stable in a high-gravity environment on the planet. However, these scientists decided that it would be more than enough to protect against anything the humans could throw at them. They were correct. The humans with their primitive weapons that depended on launching solid projectiles could do nothing against the gravitational devices. And a mining station designed to travel through solar storms could easily handle much more than even the most powerful nuclear weapons and EMPs. The humans were completely defenseless. They were insects who could do nothing in the face of a superior technology. Not even their numbers meant anything. They sent weapon after weapon, person after person. Hundreds of thousands turned into millions and tens of millions and hundreds of millions, until nearly a tenth of the population of the planet had failed to do any damage to the device at all. This all in the course of only a few months. Human scientists predicted that the device would take a better part of 100 years to fully extract the molten core of Earth. However, they were already starting to see changes to their world after only a few years. The humans posed zero threat to the Crocavic. Even if they were taken in by another race, their numbers in the mere billions would do little to nothing to help in any kind of battle. Currently, the galaxy was at peace. The only reason that the Crocavic could do what they wanted was because the rest of the galaxy, banded together, would be an equal match for them, and the human territory was well within their borders. The extinction of one primitive species was enough to start a war that would last for millennia, result in tens of trillions of deaths, give the Crocavic a possible advantage. Small skirmishes were common already, but a full-blown war was feared by everyone. Everyone except the Crocavic, that is. They were more than willing to go into a full-blown conflict. The Crocavic were not actually a predatory species. Only 3 sapient species in the galaxy were considered predatory, aside from the humans. There were the Pulingai, which consumed small animals, and their world animals would be the Earth equivalent of insects. They were similar to bats on Earth, but much larger. There were the Nithaha, which were omnivores who mostly fed on plants, but could consume flesh when absolutely necessary. Then there was the Braghurari. Then there were the Braghurari, which were scavengers. They almost never hunted their prey unless they were desperate. Even then, they were very bad at it. The Crocavic were fully herbivores. However, they developed on a level 3 death world. They were constantly under threat from predators and starvation. They evolved to be extremely territorial. They lived in large herds, which allowed them to work together to protect themselves. but they would defend their territory with extreme vigor. As the herd grew naturally, the territory did as well. This evolutionary path led them not to be aggressive expansionists, but just to be aggressive at defending their territory, which slowly grew as their population grew. In fact, keeping them in check was fairly easy. All you had to do was keep the population in check. This is why the small skirmishes never turned into full-blown war. They were interested in conquering the galaxy, They weren't interested in conquering the galaxy, merely obtaining the needed resources. When their people were killed off during the skirmishes, they would become less aggressive. Fewer people means fewer resources are needed. When fewer resources are needed, their territory doesn't need to be as large to produce said resources. The steady balance had been maintained for tens of thousands of years now. However, they were slowly winning their wars, and their territory was slowly expanding. Humans weren't the first, and no one expected them to be the last. In fact, the rest of the galaxy didn't even know about the humans, but if they did, they would have merely shrugged it off as a necessary sacrifice. The humans, on the other hand, did not see it that way. What nobody knew about the humans, including the Crocavik, who failed to study them before their invasion, was the humans' ability to adapt. It was almost a universal law that progress in technology or understanding came mostly by mistake. No one who was satisfied with their current level of achievement rarely ever strives for improvement. If it's not broken, then why fix it, as the humans would say. The Crocavik were the only race who had any semblance of actual scientific study at all. Of course, the nations would study the environment and try to manipulate it, but they were generally satisfied with their current level of technology. It did what it needed to do. Generally speaking, there was no reason to improve on technology that worked perfectly fine, and there was no reason to study the technology of the others and try to understand it unless it did something far better than yours could and would be a major boon to your civilization. This only ever happened for uplifted species. But the time and cost of such endeavors was such that other species would consider it completely moronic to even try if you weren't guaranteed significant gains. This was even more true for the scientific advancement. To reach a level that they were at took hundreds of thousands of years after their species reached space. There was very little difference in the fact between a species that had been in spacefaring for 1,000 years and 10,000 years. Many species only ever reached space because the gravitational forces of their planet were low enough to make it a fairly simple task. Some even developing in gravity not much greater than the human Earth's moon. If they had taken the time to observe the humans, then the Crocavik might have understood that what the so-called insects had done by reaching. If they had taken the time to observe the humans, then the Crocavik might have understood that what the so-called insects had done by reaching space on their high-gravity world. With their primitive technology, this was a virtual miracle. The humans had accomplished what many other scientists in the galaxy would call impossible. Of course, the act of them reaching space was far from a miracle and only really a matter of time. Doing it with their current level of technology and with their current rate of technological development was downright horrifying. Had they studied humans more closely before just downright invading them, they might have understood, at least a little, about the humans' adaptability and ingenuity. But they did not care. They saw insects to be crushed and resources to be taken. That was all the Crocavik worried about. They didn't care about what would have been impossible for any other race in the galaxy. They only cared about what was right in front of them, what they could do and what the humans could not do. The humans, on the other hand, cared about one thing and one thing only: survival. They immediately began stripping their minds and placing all of their efforts into tearing down their cities for resources. The humans would stay in compact shelters, basically tents outside of cities, with tens or even hundreds gathered under large tent-like structures. They did this while they tore down their own cities and infrastructures for resources. They built ships, not warships, colony ships. They built massive self-contained colony ships, or perhaps it would be better to call them habitats. The humans knew that their home world was lost cause, so they focused on getting as many humans to space as possible. They moved to the asteroid belt, where they had ample resources. The Krokavik were not worried about their asteroids. They were only worried about the liquid metal core of planets that could be easily mined and converted into whatever they needed. The humans struggled to survive, losing most of their habitats. But their struggle only motivated them to work harder. They began building automated probes to study the ships that were destroying their homeworld, mining stations, and the transport ships and the probes. They were being ignored. The Krokavik knew they would die off eventually, and even if they didn't, they would never become a threat. Just insects roaming around to be squashed under their feet as they trampled around their territory. They paid the predators no heed. They could care less about the buzzing of gnats angry about the fruit that they had just stolen from them. Unlike the Krokavik's level 3 death world, the Earth was a level 9 death world, the only one to ever be discovered in the galaxy. Based on stories told by the humans and scarce records of their homeworld, some argue that Earth should even be classified as a level 10, but most find the idea to be completely ridiculous. Some going so far as calling a level 9 a generous number. Those are the ones who don't take the time to go through the records, however, and who only go based on what they hear. They don't tend to trust what they hear either. It is admitted that much of what is known about Earth comes from word of mouth of humans who never actually lived there. How could any species, even humans, survive on a planet where the vast majority freezes over for months on end every human year, then drastically changes to hot, humid climate for several months on end? The mere notion is ridiculous. Worlds like that do exist, however, and data of the Earth supports these ideas. But even if it were true, the humans should only have been able to survive in the areas they saw fairly consistent weather patterns, which would mean that they had a much smaller population than records support. There is much debate over these matters currently. That being said, the humans had to. They were forced to. Their survival throughout not only the years of the invasion, but their entire evolutionary history required them to be unimaginably adaptive. To be able to survive, become the apex predators, and then reach space with such primitive technology. They had no choice but to defy what was essentially considered the law of nature by most other species. Most species saw technological development as another form of evolution. It happened at a small pace for every other species. But the humans defied all logic. They learned, they adapted, and they kept adapting. As they watched their home world collapse in on itself, as they watched the Krokavik leave their space, they kept adapting. The Krokavik, as most other species would, assumed that the humans would just die off. They had no suitable world to return to. They did not have a warp or scanner technology to locate another suitable world. Their technology would fail with time, and they would die out. At best, they might be around for a few thousand years as they continued to grow in population and consume the resources offered by their asteroid belt. But that was it. After those resources were gone, they would have nothing left. Sure, their asteroid belt contained ample resources that could easily be harvested by the Krokavik. But for the Krokavik, it was much easier and more efficient to harvest entire planets like they had done for Earth. Planets whose core were already molten and the iron could easily be refined and shaped. The Krokavik would only focus on other sources when more rare materials could be found in a great abundance. But the humans defied common logic. They didn't just survive, they adapted and thrived in their new environment. But that wasn't even the most terrifying thing about humans. The thing that entire galaxies would soon learn to fear is that humans do not forget. The humans keep records, they pass on stories, and they burn with the passion, desire, hatred, and they need, not want, but they need revenge. It's an evolutionary need. It's how they conquered their world. They hunted to extinction, killed off any predators that were better adapted than them. Anything that posed a threat, it was brought to extinction. Within 25 years of leaving their homeworld, the humans began to study the technology of the Crocavik. They merely watched them and collected data. They shared their information with other humans and learned and grew and adapted. They knew FTL was possible now. They knew FTL was possible now and was their goal. Within 50 years of leaving their homeworld, they began experimenting with FTL on a small scale that they knew the Crocavik would never notice. Within a year of the Crocavik leaving their system, they began testing FTL on a much larger scale. Within 20 years, they had fully mastered primitive FTL technology and began sending out probes. Within that same 20-year period, they were also discovered by no fewer than three new worlds that could settle on. Within that same 20 years, they also discovered no fewer than 3 new worlds that they could settle on, 2 of which were level 6 death worlds with only microbial life, and 1 was a level 4 death world with a small, unintelligent life form. They all had gravity similar to Earth and a similar atmosphere. They would not require much terraforming. To most other species, including the Crocavik, these worlds would be considered completely uninhabitable. But to the humans, they were virtual paradises. The Crocavik were partially right. They compared the humans the same way a human would compare something to an insect. Unfortunately, the Crocavik failed to realize that the humans were not just insects. Any insects. They were more like human roaches. If you crush them, then they will come back with vengeance. If you nuke them, they'll feast on the corpses of all else that died. You will never end the humans. They will always survive, and they will always come back. But unlike the roaches, the humans do not just return in number, but in strength, with better tactics, and with their unnaturally disgusting adaptability. The humans reached these worlds, and their population boomed in what they called their paradise worlds. With their population booms also came technological advancements. For long, their strive to create FTL drives capable of safe and efficient travel between planets had driven them to create FTL even better than the Crocavik. Their knowledge of the ever-present threat of Crocavik invasion forced them to create weapons and armor capable of standing their ground. Before long, within only 150 years of the collapse of the humans' homeworld, the Crocavik became aware of another species within their territory. This new species had to go. The Crocavik sent a small scouting ship to check out the situation. What they found was a species they thought they had never seen before. How had they come out of nowhere and built FTL and colonized 2 additional planets, death worlds, no less, without even a Crocavik noticing? Well, they were noticing now, and they were not pleased. The humans, on the other hand, jumped at the opportunity to learn the full complexities of the Crocavik technology. The humans shot down the scouting ships and immediately began analyzing them. The Crocavik didn't really care. It was just a few scouting ships, no major loss. They lost far more in irregular skirmishes. They soon sent out a small fleet of battleships. Based on the intel they had on this new species, provided by the now-deceased scouts, this would be more than enough to take down the new enemy threatening their territory. They were met with technology far more advanced than what was originally reported. It had only taken a few months to get the reports back from the scouts, and to begin analyzing the information. This new species must have been hiding their technology. Even so, the Crocavik was still more advanced than them. It was curious how a species with only 3 planets could produce such technology. But if their FTL tech was any indicator, then this was about right. They must have purposely stayed under the radar until the Crocavik picked them up due to their increased activity. They stepped up, and now they were going to pay for that mistake. Or so the Crocavik thought. After losing several battleships, they decided to take this new threat seriously. They would send in a full skirmisher fleet to each of the 3 planets. You can imagine their surprise when they, for the first time in their history as a species, were met with their own technology firing back at them. After their second defeat, their third going by human calculations, they decided that enough was enough. They declared full-on war with this new species. This is where they made their single largest mistake. They took several years to gather together and organize their ships. They had the capacity. They had to carefully and strategically move ships from their front lines to intercept this new threat while still securing their borders. This resulted in several years of relative peace that allowed the humans to do what they do best: adapt. They came with a full armada. They were met with ships that were few in number, but with technology so superior to their own that they were hard-pressed to do any damage to them at all. The more damage they took, though, the harder they had to fight. They could not allow this new species to exist. But fortunately for them, that's exactly what the humans wanted. What the humans lacked now was not technology or scientific achievements, but resources. They were feeding the humans resources. As they fed the humans, the resistance grew stronger. As the resistance grew stronger, their war efforts increased. And as their war efforts increased, they only fed the humans more. It was at this time that the rest of the galaxy started to notice that something was up. The Crocavik were retreating inward. This was extremely unusual for them. The Council decided not to push, considering that it might be a test of sorts to see if they could act aggressively as a show of weakness. They feared war if they pushed inward towards the Crocavik territory. There was only so much that their humans could do, however. Even with their advanced technology, they only controlled 3 planets, and those planets weren't even close to their population caps. That was when the humans taught the galaxy what a real war looks like. You see, the humans, in order to prevent their own extinction, had to hold back on their homeworld when fighting wars against one another. They created unbreakable treaties and vows. They created unbreakable treaties and vowed to hold back their greatest weapons in order to prevent mutual destruction. Their next weapons would have been completely unimaginable to any other species, because no other species were expansionists like humans were. Other species created weapons for defensive purposes, not offensive. This was true even for the Crocavik. So what happened next would have been considered a mere coincidence had the humans not personally admitted to it after the fact. On more than 100 Crocavik city worlds, including their homeworld, pods dropped from the sky. Small escape pods like ships, no weapons or anything, just room enough for a few dozen people and never-before-seen compact FTL drive. These ships made landfall on the planets containing about a dozen Crocavik military personnel each. Some were dead, one of which was swollen and contorted beyond all recognition, but most were alive. They explained that the humans had injected them with this new experimental drug, then simply crammed them into the ships and let them go. No explanation as to why. Some were very bruised and battered with welts covering their entire body. It was thought to be a warning of sorts, psychological warfare, though it had been a very long time since the Crocavik were aware of this type of tactic. It was a common tactic used by predators to distinguish the weak from the strong in their herds. Though this was not going to work. The Crocavik were intelligent. They would care for their sick and injured and would work together. This threat would not weaken their resolve, but strengthen it. Within only a few weeks, military activity exploded among the Krokavik. They would not take this threat sitting down. They would stand up and fight to the last. Little did they know, this was exactly what the humans wanted. The humans couldn't last much longer, only a few years at most. Even with their rate of advancement and growing military power, they were limited in the number of humans that could fight. That's why they devised the single most horrific weapon ever to hit the galactic stage. Within a few weeks of taking in the released prisoners sent by the humans, more than 10 billion Krokavik had died from a mysterious illness. Their bodies would swell up and contort. It was the single most painful and grotesque-looking plague in the history of their people. And worse yet, it spread so well that it could not be treated. Any doctors working on a treatment would die before they could make any progress at all. They ended up quarantining entire planets. By the time they finally got a sample safely grown in the lab, over a quarter of their population had been infected and killed. The death toll for infection, 99.9 reoccurring percent. This was a super virus, unlike anything anyone in the entire galaxy had ever even imagined possible. It went against all logic. Nothing like this could ever survive. Even if it had mutated from another similar species on their planet, it should not have had such a high death toll. It was as if the virus's entire purpose in existence was to kill. This went against natural selection, against the very laws of nature. But it existed, and they had to deal with it. They did survive, just barely. Using their advanced technology, they were able to create a cure and send it to their remaining population just in time. The virus would circulate and reinfect individuals multiple times. Building up an immune response was nearly impossible. However, with their treatments and proper quarantine procedures, they were able to reduce the rate of infection by about 10%. Not that it did them any good, but most importantly, they were able to increase the chances of survival from 1 in a billion to about 22.3%, enough to save their species from extinction. Just in case, because their virus was prone to mutate. Just in case, because this virus was prone to mutate, they had completely quarantined several worlds that were never infected. No on or off traffic allowed in the system. The humans, however, they did not care about these regulations. In fact, they took full advantage of this weakness. The invasion had completely stopped and the military almost gone. The remnants left to defend a few quarantine systems left in their territory. The humans were not finished. However, allowing a small respite would not hurt. The humans expanded outwards, colonizing more worlds and building their fleets larger and stronger. Curiously, they did not name any of their colonies after their homeworld. There was not a New Earth or a Terra 2.0. Though they did name them after cities, states, nations, or empires of their world. Some were named after gods, others' names were chosen at random. Before long, they made contact with the galactic community. The message that they received is still contained within the record. It is as follows. "We come in peace, or war, your choice. Choose carefully." The entire galaxy was in an uproar about this new message, coming from a completely unheard of species, and from within the territory of the Krokavik. No one had any idea what was going on. They decided on peace. They were very happy that they did so as well, especially when they witnessed new terror. The humans finally decided to name a settlement after their homeworld. After tracking down the supply charts and finding the metal gathered from the planet's core, along with the metal repurposed for entire fleets of the defeated Krokavik, they built a massive Dyson sphere colony around their native sun. They allowed the rest of the galaxy to witness the completion of this colony. They forcefully gathered up the remainder of the Krokavik and placed them in a Dyson sphere. The Krokavik couldn't even breathe under the heavy weight of the humans' native gravity. They slowly died, fertilizing the soil for their new, massive habitat. Some say that the soil in this habitat still maintains a slight shade of green, similar to the color of the Krokavik's blood. But that was not even the most cruel thing those vicious predators did to the poor and innocent Crocavik. No, they did not kill them all. Instead, taking a small number, only about 10,000, and releasing them back at their home world. Then surrounding the home world with an AI-guided missile... Then surrounding the homeworld with an AI-guided satellite network that will immediately target anything resembling electronics or advanced technology. The humans perpetually forced the Crocavik to live the rest of their existence in what was essentially the Stone Ages, never again to return to the galactic community. The humans made it clear that this was not a threat, but a warning to the rest of the galaxy. So you can imagine the panic and utter horror that enveloped the Council when they learned that the humans were expansionist predators by nature. They were not merely territorial and defensive like the Crocavik, who had conquered nearly half the galaxy previously, but they actively sought to expand their territory. With their current level... All right. More liquid. With their current technology, no one could stop them. And they made it clear that even if the entire galaxy banded together against them, they would only end up like the Crocavik. This panic was eased not much longer after this, when it was learned that the humans could not thrive on worlds that most other species found habitable. The humans' extreme adaptations to their death world required them to inhabit other death worlds. The primary concern was the gravitational level. Theoretically, a human could survive on a level 1 death world that had high gravity. However, few of those had ever been discovered. The humans did not care for war. They only cared about survival and constant improvement. They would not war with us easily over resources. The only thing they really wanted from us was our worlds, because our habitable worlds and their habitable worlds were so different. We were able to work out a compromise fairly easily. The humans were not restricted to any territory. They could colonize any planet that they wanted in any system, even habitable systems, unless those worlds were already inhabited by another sentient race. They were not allowed to drive off sentient habitats. They were not allowed to drive off sentient inhabitants of other worlds, even those without spaceflight, as the Crocavik had done for resources. They also could not gather resources from claimed systems, or a system with any sentient life, even those who had not yet discovered spaceflight. They were given an entirety of the former Crocavik territory, except several systems that were recently taken by them. They agreed to allow other species to inhabit habitable worlds in this territory, so long as they showed no hostility, followed their laws, and the humans would retain all rights to all resources within these territories. Everything seemed to be going wonderfully, and far better than anyone had ever expected. The humans were far more cooperative than anyone had ever imagined. Everyone was overjoyed by their new system of cooperations with the humans. Honestly speaking, most of the other species would have happily conceded to many of these concessions just to avoid war with the humans. But the humans were the ones who drafted most of these arrangements. Because of this, it not only came as a surprise, but an enormous joy for the other members of the galactic treaties to accept these terms. That is at least until the human representative asked the single most horrifying question that anyone in the galaxy had ever heard. Something that sent shivers down the spines of every non-human who heard it. Something so unthinkable, so unimaginable, so expansionistic that no one... Woohoo! Ban. Making noise. So unimaginable, so expansionistic that no one had ever even considered, let alone dreamed about the possibility. After all other discussions and agreements were finalized, with a wry, predatory smile on her face, Brace yourself for these words. This is not a lie, but the truth. The more easily frightened species may want to stop reading here. She asked,
What should we do about the other galaxies?
End of story. And I'm back. Whoops. There we go. I think I forgot to record the video. That's not a problem. Alright, let me just ban somebody. Okay. Ban and Right. Just making sure the world is burning. Everything looks good. We'll go back to this. I can put my glasses on. I can take my glasses off and clean them, because there's a smudge on them. Right. Hello, everybody who joined while I was away reading. I will get to your messages shortly. Just shining my eyes quickly so that I can see properly. That didn't really help. Alright, scroll back up. Scroll back up. The reader seems very excited about the story and catching up. Thunderstorms are actually, I fall asleep with thunderstorms, but I don't play anything. I just, if there is a thunderstorm, I sleep better. Yes. This is a pretty old type of story trope. Wolf also, you just need to send me a message on Reddit. They're giving me permission, and I'll add your user account to the list of authors I use. Well, I prefer having somebody contact me on Reddit from the account that posted the story, so I can just make sure that it is your story. Good morning, OBS. I hope you're doing well. Good morning, Ardent. I hope you're doing well. Good morning, Stormy. I hope you're doing well. Night Captain No Name, I hope you have a pleasant day. Right, we're getting there, almost caught up. Cool bath, yeah. Unfortunately, the time travel is a pain. people from all different walks of time zone. Smug was a bit smug, yes. Awesome. 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 Okay, caught up. I think it's just, I missed the spot that I was supposed to be cleaning, which is why I didn't clean. Alright. We can go to story mode number 2. Doing the normal editing. So we're at 63, which I think is a record for these streams, which is awesome. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I work 6 days a week, so I do understand it. So that was, let me just double check here. Well, the time zone manipulation doesn't even happen in every country. South Africa doesn't change its time, but everybody else does. So twice a year, my videos come out at different times, even though I personally release them at the same time. Here. Nope, that's not it. Well, I mean, for the first 3 years of this channel, I worked 7 days a week. Managed to carve out 1 day for myself, which, you know, the voice needs. Right. Awesome. That is that. Now we can generate some backgrounds for the video. 2 of them. Sure. You can say it in Afrikaans. My Afrikaans is horrible. But, I mean, you can easily tell a South African. You just say, how's it? That's it. How's it? And you know the person's South African. How's it, my bro? Good morning, CJ86. I hope you're doing well. Wolfos, I do see your message. I will respond after the stream. Yes. It is the most South African way of greeting, I think. It's even more South African than speaking Afrikaans or any other of our languages. It's universal. Well, nearly universal. Well, I think daylight savings was a lot more relevant when electricity wasn't a thing. So when the sun went down, you stopped working, and when the sun came up, you started working. Daylight saving makes perfect sense for then. It doesn't now when we've got light, easy light. How's it? Which is basically just how is it shortened into one word. It's also what bowlers scream at umpires in a game of cricket. Well, not bowlers, players. Just everybody screams it at the poor umpire. And he has to stand there and says, hello, hello, hello. That's a cricket joke. It's probably the only one I'll ever tell. Alrighty. So, interestingly enough, that was roughly 10,000 words, those two stories. Which would mean that my stamina is back up to 66%. We'll see tomorrow how it affects my voice on a longer scale. But it's okay. It's a bit flat now. But we have done 66% of what I would normally do in a day. So we're getting there. We're improving every day. Yes. Okay. But, okay, that's sent to there, that's sent to there. I do need to have a quick bathroom break. I do apologize. I shall be right back. Here's a squirrel to keep you entertained. And here's some music.
Hoist the sails and let the wind guide our way. We're the spacemen sailing the cosmic bay. From Jupiter to Saturn, we'll deliver our freight on our starship, sailing through the interplanetary strait. With a hardy crew and a cargo of dreams, through the nebula's mist we'll forge our own schemes. In the vastness of space where no man has been, we'll navigate, chart the unexplored galactic highway. Evil mateys upon the starry sea, we're the spacemen sailing through infinity. With our voices loud and our spirits free, we'll voyage across the celestial sea. Voyage across the celestial sea.
I am back. Let's turn the music down a little bit. Alright, what did I miss? Daylight savings. You can hear the voices starting to give out. Yes, my name's Aggro Squirrel. There you go. It's Aggro is my first name, Squirrel's my second name. Very weird thing, but I don't know. My parents are kind of like that. My wife's called Mrs. Squirrel, and my dad is called Old Fogey Squirrel. The third. Well, it's not necessarily against YouTube's guidelines about talking about it, but it is against my guidelines about talking political stuff. Any political stuff, whether it's South African or otherwise on the channel. I do know Slappy the Squirrel. I remember it from Newgrounds, and then also the original YouTube. Thank you, Thomas. I'll definitely try. We're getting there. I'm quite happy that we managed to get two long stories done within 2.5 hours. Yeah, so South Africa doesn't have a two-party system like most of the places, so we've got like 50. Oh, that's Slappy the Squirrel. Yes, I do know Slappy the Squirrel. I know Animaniacs. Right, time to do some thumbnails. These two stories are very, very similar. Thank you, Donald. Thank you. Well, I do want to push these streams to 4 or 5 hours. Squirrel Girl, I've never read the comic. I've seen the character. Foamy the Squirrels from Newgrounds, yes. And they also had a YouTube channel. Cheers, Sniper. Thank you for bobbing past. It's very much appreciated. What am I doing? Oh, thumbnails. Right. The thing with the narration is it destroys my concentration afterwards. My brain kind of goes... What? Yeah, eventually. It's all about doing it daily, getting into the habit, and then also keeping chat going. And that's the thing. Much of a muchness, really. So if it's in the same video, people prefer the same stories, I think. The things that determine originally what the views is the title and the thumbnail, more than any story. So once you get somebody watching, that's important. So the titles can make a big difference between two different stories, and also what day of the week it's released. I don't think there'll be particularly that much difference between these two stories, because they'll come out one after the other. A pleasure, Ardent. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you, Piano Gallery, for the 20 USD. It is very much appreciated. And it says, gotta make sure I do this so I don't forget. Cheers, Squirrel Legion. We're a legion of squirrels now, apparently. I don't like Legion. For I am Legion. This has always been a cool line. I have no idea. Yeah, I mean, that would have been last year. It wasn't even years ago. So at one point, I used to post 4 times a day. It'll be 8, 2, 8, 2. So 8 p.m., 2 a.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m. So it was 2 series, 2 one-shots. And we'll be getting back to that eventually, hopefully. We'll be doing new one-shot in the evening, which is my evening, 8 p.m. And then read TFOS, which is taking old stories and redoing them, in 8 a.m. So they'll still get back to that 12 hours. And then once that's done, we'll move over to series, and they'll be released at the same time. 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock. These times are very arbitrary. I can't even remember why I chose them. There was no particular time. It's not like it's the most optimal time. It's just, for some reason, it was the way it worked out when I first started.
Let the stars draw near, raising up the anchor, setting sails to the sky, bidding farewell to this world, no tears left to cry.
Well, that's good to hear, Soaring Tales.
My compass, I'm not
So when I started the channel, I had no experience, no training, and a crap mic. So I'm not quite happy with the quality. I think that I've improved over the last 5 years. So I want to give those stories a good try, up to today's standards, with scrolling text, with face, and all of that stuff. I'm not going to take the old stories down, but I will redo them to modern standards.
cosmic lullaby, a space shanty melody as I say my last goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, I've changed in 5 years. So I want to give the old stories just as much attention as the new ones. I'm not denoting them. They were great. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just nice to do it a new version, just so everybody can enjoy it. Especially with the scrolling text, because I think the first 700 or 800 videos didn't have scrolling text, and it's very much requested. So if I'm going to go to the effort of editing it, I might as well just do it from scratch, just to update it. I mean, I've already done a couple. I've done the first 5, 6 on the channel. So the other thing is some of those original stories were long. It wasn't quite as standardized as I do it now. So some of them might take a bit longer than others. Well, the theory about streaming for a longer period of time is quite, you'll eventually catch more and more people in a time when they can listen to your stream. That's why most of your successful streamers stream for so long. And contracts. So when I start, I know that it's between 12 and 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. for most Americans. But if I stream for 6 hours, it'll be 9 o'clock in the morning for some and 6 for others. So it's the longer you stream, the more of an audience you can hit. Fair enough, Soren. I'm glad you're enjoying the streams. Hopefully, if we keep... I mean, the numbers are doing well today. So the more we do this, the better the outcome will be. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but I did actually do Death Wielders at one point. Sorry about that, I sneezed. Thankfully, it gave me enough warning to throw up the mute. So I did like the first 15 chapters of Deathworld. Also, Retreat Hell is the same length, it's 3 hours. It's a bit difficult to plan around it. Fair enough, that's decent. I was, however, thinking of something like this. Yes. The sneeze and blowing of the nose, thankfully, you didn't have ASMR. I don't know whether that classifies as ASMR, but I'm pretty sure it won't. Oh. So my sinuses are still poked from last week. Moving stuff around my screen. Wow. Yeah, ASMR to someone. I would love to immediately know if you're joking about that, but I can also see a channel existing like that, so it's not even that funny. Yeah, so there are some very, very bleh channels on YouTube. And yet, if I say one naughty word too many, I lose my money. Caffeine. Nom noms. That sounds horrible. I'm in Kira 42. A whole program to get dedicated to pumple popping. No. I'm good. Don't need to watch that. I'm not a squeamish person. But that's just very fecking weird. I'm glad your workday's almost done, Donald. Well, not going anywhere. I should be here for at least another half an hour. Yeah, I don't even know who the audience for that would be. I can just say that I'm not the target audience for that content. How do you even pitch that in like a meeting? It's just, yeah. I mean, at least a YouTube channel, it's like low to the entry, low to the ground cost. But a TV show? Ugh. That just sounds way too complicated. It's just disgusting. Ugh. Alrighty. Wasn't ignoring you, but I was ignoring you while I was just doing some stuff. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm still trying to get over the pumper popping on normal TV. Cheers, CJ. I hope you have a fantastic day at work. Well, I mean, you don't describe what you're doing as, you say creating entertainment would be the easy way of doing that, Crusader. It sounds like anything and everything goes on cable TV. Well, Captain No Name, it would be like me trying to narrate this as if it were real, like a real life thing, and that's role playing. Fair enough, each to their own. It's what you enjoy, it's what you enjoy. I just doesn't do anything for me. That's fair enough. Yeah. I don't have the time for a D&D campaign or anything like that. I've played it a couple times in my life, but it takes quite a bit of time. So I play Magic the Gathering, which takes less time, and I can do it once a week. That's awesome, James. Oh yeah, no, it would be lots of stress. I mean, I could only read and narrate and voice act so much in a day. Our card prices are based off of US card prices. So whatever the US price is what we pay. Sealed merchandise is more expensive. A lot more expensive. Marcus? No, I'm not painting minis. So, painting minis has never really been a hobby of mine. What is that? Toilet paper. Hobby of mine. I did it as a background. And I tried getting into the hobby. So that was my attempt at getting into the hobby. The problem is, I would paint and sort of enjoy it, but I would end up with such a sore back and neck that it was ridiculous. So I decided to stop. I agree that there would be a nice animation in some of these stories, especially some of the small series. Those are pretty normally well written, with a beginning, middle, and end. The other thing with painting minis on camera is very different than painting minis normally, because you sit in such a weird position that you get the video, that it just hurts your back so much more. Awesome. Interesting question. It would definitely have to be an adult-related series, animated series, and by adult I mean like violence and stuff. PG-16. I don't know if that's the thing anymore. 16 plus. Yeah, I mean there's that as well. With my eyes it was very difficult. If I had like a magnifying glass, it would mess with my eyes. I'll definitely keep that in mind, AJ. Yeah, the problem is then that's just adding a lot more extra work to a video that may not necessarily add that value to the video, if that makes sense. So, showing my face adds value. Doing the minis thing for very specific stories wouldn't, but if I had a channel dedicated to that sort of stuff, it would. Yeah, I mean, it still needs to be enjoyable for me as well. Well, as enjoyable as can be. It's still a job. There are still some days where I don't feel up to it, but force myself, as any job. We had a massive spike in subscribers yesterday. Massive. It was an extra 20 subscribers. No idea why. Maybe the algorithm has finally realized that I'm back. It's only taken a month. Yeah. So the amount of work put into a video, you kind of want that to pay out in a video as well. South African native fruits. Lychees are nice. I think that's South African specific. It's a citrus, but it's not as sweet as an orange. There's another similar fruit. Lychee. It's similar to a mandarin, satsuma, or tangerine. Miracle fruit. I'm busy looking at the because when you eat fruit, you don't think, is it unique to this country? Yeah, it's not many. It's also mostly arid and semi-arid. You don't really get fruit trees in those environments. So there aren't too many. Sounds interesting, Wolfos. Definitely a nice hearty breakfast. Grenadilla as well, yeah, I suppose. Grenadilla is you seriously need to have an acquired taste for grenadilla. The flavoring's nice, but the fruit itself is very sour/sweet, but it's like tapioca inside. So you need to like the texture of tapioca and a combination of, what would you say, lemonish, very sour, sweet flavoring. Marcus, the reason why it's getting pushed so much is because there's so many new channels. I think I counted at least a dozen new HFY channels, and there's more every day. People have realized that you can make money doing this. So they're doing it. Nothing we can do about it. Just keep telling YouTube you don't want that content if you don't want it. It's similar to boba. It's so difficult to explain what a grenadilla tastes like. It's slimy. I think would be slimy with pips. It's kind of what it is. I do know that, what is it? Sorry, brains turned to mush. Gem squash. Gem squash is not indigenous to South Africa, but it's pretty much only eaten in South Africa. It's a very pumpkin-y type thing, or a squash type flavoring. But it looks like a ball about this big. Yep. If you're successful at something, people will copy you. Well, personally, my only particularly big gripe about them is they're not asking for permission. They have an audience, obviously, for what they're doing. So they should be asking for permission to use the content from the authors. That would be my only gripe at them. What was I doing? Oh, I have no idea. My brain has turned to mush. Mush, I tell you. Mush. I still got some coffee left. Very, very cold coffee. Makes no difference in my life. Marcus, I mean, that's always going to happen. I mean, me and Narrator and Amy and Zren, we've all done stories that the others have done. It's all about making it your own, personalizing it in your own way. We're all using the same pool for the content, so there's obviously going to be overlap. But my style and Amy's style and Zren's style and Net Narrator style are all different to each other, so you should be able to listen to the same story by any of us, and it'd be relatively different because of the styles. Also, I mean, on a weekly basis, there's only so many new one-shots that are released. The thing that slows us down about doing the new ones is asking for permission. And then waiting for a response. Fair enough. Yeah, so, yeah, mold and coffee, not great. It's restream.io. So it's the restreaming service that splits up the signal to both YouTube and Twitch. If you go in there, you can get the URL for a combined chat. So I just use that. And then add it into OBS. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason. There's enough content that if people say no, it's okay. Even if there wasn't enough content, it's still okay. It's their rights. Fair enough. I mean, personally, I don't enjoy those stories, so I don't narrate them. As simple as that. I also don't like having content that's behind a wall. But that's a personal preference. I'm not looking down at anybody. I like that my content will always be for free, eventually. Yeah, and there'll always be preferences. And some people prefer the TTS voices, and that's fine. There's so many channels using them, it's sort of nostalgic to a degree. We have an entire generation of people that have grown up with those voices, so they don't see anything wrong with it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have asked for a collab, but my style is very different. So, I don't know, it becomes difficult to stitch together two things. Especially if the other style is very different. There was one a couple of years ago called Diamond Dragon. She was quite popular for a little while. TTS and AI voices, they get transposed. They're pretty much the same thing. Not transposed. Interchangeable. Spinner of rope, I'm glad you enjoy the content. Thank you very much for the kind words. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm glad it's helped. I really am. Night shift can be such a drag, for lack of a better word. So anything that makes it go quicker is always, appreciated. I've done that sort of shift before. I know. Nice. Very nice. I know you released them all. It's a good story, Dungeon Life. He did the slice of life thing pretty well for Isekai. The world building was very nice. Yeah, I don't think I've ever come across that captain. Fair enough. I've been told that several times. Find it weird that other people read in my voice in their head. It's odd to me. I understand it, but it's still odd. Well, a lot of programs are using AI for TTS. I think that's where the confusion comes in. Fair enough, Spinner. It's strange. I'm not saying that you're strange, it's just an odd sensation being told that my voice is in somebody else's head. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just an organic TTS machine. If you really want to break it down to the base. It's a good story as well. The grammar of the title is a bit iffy because I normally just say humans are bad familiars, but it's not actually called that. The strange thing about Humans Don't Make Good Familiars is the person who wrote the original one-shot of it and the person who wrote the series are two different people. The original author gave the second author permission to do it. It's a pleasure. It's just a random fact that... Because I did the original story on the channel. And then somebody else started doing the series, and I was like really confused, so I just asked them what was going on. I do not read for fun anymore. When you do something for a job, you don't really want to do that thing when you're not working. So I don't really do personal reading stuff. The closest it gets is reading Magic cards when I play Magic the Gathering. I haven't actually read anything for personal enjoyment in a while. Not really. I mean, I do read for multiple hours a day, so it's not like I don't read. It's just I don't go out of my way to read stuff that isn't in work. I mostly just watch YouTube. I watch a ridiculous amount of YouTube. But YouTube is also my job, kinda. So it's research. I watch a whole host of YouTube channels and just random stuff. You'll be like, oh, okay, these guys are trying this, these guys are trying that. And you go, okay. And then some of them I'll watch just for the sake of watching it. Yes, that's one of the things you have to get used to as a streamer. No, actually a content creator is being incessantly asked the same questions. And it's not because somebody is being, or trying to be a troll or anything, it's just because they don't know. And they weren't around or didn't see the thing where you asked. So it's like first contact. I stopped doing it and removed it months ago, but I still get questions about it because people haven't seen the announcement. Or why the series channel is not producing content at the moment. Even though I have mentioned it on the series channel and in stream multiple times, there are people that haven't seen the announcement. Valnera, thank you for popping past. It is much appreciated. Yes, it's very much like asking a chef what does he like eating in his spare time. Or, you know, any profession really. Alright. I do think that this is going to be the conclusion of today's stream. We've just passed the 3.5 hour mark. Managed to get a lot of story done. It was 10,000 words of story. I'm actually quite happy with that. I'd like to thank you all for spending your time with me. It's very much appreciated. Hopefully, I was able to entertain you enough to pass the time. And I'll see you again tomorrow. No worries, Spinner. Ask the questions you want to ask. It's not a problem. All right. Goodbye.